We're learning the third sicha of Parshas Beshalach in Chelik Chaf Aleph on page 89. The shir today is being learned L'Le Nishmas, Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. B'soif Parshasenu, by Milchemes Amalek. In the end of this week's Parsha, where the Torah tells us the story of Amalek that came to fight the Yidden. Rashi brings the words of the pasuk where it says, V'yidei Moshe kvedim, and Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were heavy. So what has happened here in the story is that Moshe Rabbeinu sent out Yeshua to go and fight Amalek, and meanwhile he went on top of a mountain and held his hands up to Shemayim to daven to Hashem. So the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu's hands became heavy. Rashi brings these words and is mefarish and explains, Bishvil shenis atzel b'mitzvah, because he was lax with fulfilling the mitzvah of going out and fighting Amalek. Uminach atachtav, and he appointed someone else in his place. Nisyakru yadav, his hands became heavy. So what is Rashi saying here? The Pirish B'zeh B'pashtus is, the simple understanding of what Rashi is saying is as follows. Rashi is eisen samaz b'zayin. Rashi is here to explain as agam from the lashon v'yidei Moshe kvedim. Even though the simple meaning of this language, that the hands of Moshe are heavy, lashon haive, using a present tense, is mashma, it would seem, as das is given by him damals hamatziv tmidi, that this was just his condition, his constant condition at that time period, and we can say it's mitzad zayin zikna, because of his old age. At that point, Moshe Rabbeinu was 80 years old, about. Is Rashi mifarish, so Rashi comes and says that das is nitazai. That's not what the pasuk is saying here, that his hands was heavy because of old age. It happened because of a certain cause. Because he was lazy or he was lax in the mitzvah, so his hands became heavy. However, what Rashi says, it needs to be understood. In Parsha Shemais, earlier in Parsha Shemais, in Pasuk Vayiba derech b'molim v'goyme vayibakish hamiseh, Moshe Rabbeinu is on the way with his wife and his children back to Mitzrayim, and they stop off in a hotel, and a snake comes and attacks Moshe Rabbeinu and wants to kill him. Is Rashi mefarish vayivakish hamiseh, Moshe wanted to kill Moshe. The reason is fishel es Eliezer b'noi, because he didn't do a bris milah for his son Eliezer. Va'al shenisrashol, because he was careless or he wasn't mindful of the mitzvah, nenash einish mitzvah misa. So therefore, he was about to be punished with death. Then Rashi says, Tanya, Omer Rabbi Yosi says, Chas v'sholem, God forbid, loy nisrashol. Moshe Rabbeinu was not careless about the mitzvah. Ela Omer chulu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzivani chulu. Moshe Rabbeinu made a calculation that he has a command to go to Mitzrayim. As Rashi explains what Moshe Rabbeinu's calculation was. Now, wie bald Rashi sagt nicht auf den zweiten Pirish, as das is adrash, b'chayetze bezeh. When Rashi continues and brings the pshat that Rabbi Yosi says that God forbid to say that Moshe Rabbeinu was careless about a mitzvah, he doesn't say that this is a drash. This is literally pshutish mikra. This is the simple understanding of the pasuk here. It's verstandig, so it's understood as eich al pi pshutish mikra monzich noch a Pirish zu bavaren as chas v'shalom leinis rashel. That even in the simple pshat of the pasuk, Rashi must add this additional detail here about Moshe Rabbeinu, because God forbid to say that Moshe Rabbeinu is lazy or careless about a mitzvah. If so, the question is here, how does Rashi here say so simply as nisatzel b'mitzvah, that Moshe Rabbeinu was lazy with this mitzvah? On is the fat nenish geworden, that's the punishment here. Bringt dafür nicht, that zweiten Pirish doesn't bring any other interpretation to this. Was soll Sheila sein, the minion von Atzlos by Moshe, that would negate this concept, that there is no laziness on behalf of Moshe. Noch mehr, questions furthermore, euch leiten ersten Pirish and Rashi dort is nicht move on. Even according to the first explanation that Rashi there says that Moshe Rabbeinu was careless about the mitzvah, so it's not understood. Wie bald, as Moshe is schein nenish geworden, auf an Ingen von des Rashlos bei mitzvah, if Moshe Rabbeinu once before was already punished that is, for a laziness in a mitzvah, is doch moving to pashit, so it's obvious, it's understood, as von dann on is Moshe given zoir, as bei ihm soll nicht sein chas v'shalom ken Ingen von des Rashlos bei mitzvah. So definitely he learned his lesson, and from there going forward, he never had any level of laziness for any mitzvah. And wie is da, Rashi mifarish, as this is given by Moshe and Aniyim from this atzel b'mitzvah. How could Rashi say that here, again this happens, that Moshe Rabbeinu is lazy with fulfilling a mitzvah? So now, this is the pshat that Rashi says in the pasuk, but there are other pshatim that it says in midrashim and so on that Rashi could have brought. In midrash Chazal, zeneda oich andere time for was kavdi yodav. There are other reasons explaining why Moshe Rabbeinu's hands became heavy. Aleph, in Targum Yenison steht, as das ist der Fahr, was hat abgelegt the Mochama auf Machar. The reason he had this punishment, his hands became heavy, is because he delayed the mitzvah of fighting Amalek to the next day. And he didn't go quickly and fight Amalek on that very day. Beis, another pshat, noch atam steht, Yakru Yadav Shal Moshe, the Medrash says, Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were heavy, Mishum Aviniseim Shal Yisrael, as a result of the sins of Yidden. Sha'amru Hayesh Hashem Geime. When the Yidden questioned, is the Eibishter amongst us, is he not amongst us? This is why Amalek came to attack the Yidden, and this is also why Moshe Rabbeinu's hands became heavy. So now, let's see why Rashi doesn't quote any of these explanations. Das, was Rashi bringt mit dem ersten Tam, Akalpanam als Pirisheni. The fact that Rashi doesn't bring the first pshat of the Targum Yenison, at least as a second pshat here, is more when it's understood. Even though in the general content of this pshat, it's similar to the pshat that Rashi actually brings, an inyan from Hepech Hazrizas by Moshe, a certain behavior which is the opposite of doing things with alacrity and going quickly into doing a mitzvah. Aber that time is istavim shutish mikra. But it's understood that this reason is not logical according to the simple pshat of the pasuk. As mitzad atzlos hat sich die Sache getan bis machar. The fact that Moshe delayed it until the next day was simply out of laziness. This is not. It doesn't make sense that Moshe Rabbeinu would delay an entire day to the next day just out of laziness. Says Abinut move on. However, what's not understood here is favas lernt Rashi nit. Then Tam why doesn't Rashi bring the reason that the Medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu's hands are a result of the Yidden's Averis? Was like them is nit nesatzel Moshe. So over here, there's no atzlos, there's no laziness on behalf of Moshe. Ubefrat, and especially as benidden didan is avenisayim shel Yisrael nikin chiddush. The fact that here it's the sins of Yidden that are causing this is not something novel. Das ist schon gesagt geworden früher in Pirish Rashi. Rashi himself explains this and brings this that the ganze Sibbe von Milchemes Amalek is das was the Yidden haben gesagt, Hayesh Hashem b'Kabenu. The fact that Yidden questioned the presence of Hashem amongst them was the whole reason why Amalek had this opening to come and attack Yidden. Is doch mehr Massen zu lernen Akopanim als zweite Pirish. So it's definitely more fitting here to learn, at least as a second interpretation, as Videi Moshe Kveden, that when Moshe's hands are heavy, is Tzalib of Anisayim Shal Yisrael. It's a result of the sins of Yidden. Was wegen dem hat schon die Teure erzählt. This is something that the Teure tells us already about here. Eidet zum Meisiv sein, as das ist Libaninien von Esatzel by Moshe, rather than saying that this is a result of a laziness on behalf of Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Okay, now this question here that Rebbe continues in Siv Gimel about the fact that we're looking at Moshe Rabbeinu's behavior as being laziness becomes even stronger when we look at what it says later in the Torah. The Schwierigkeit in Pirish Rashi, as Nisatzel Moshe b'mitzvah mina achat tachtav, that Moshe Rabbeinu was lazy and he appointed someone else in his place. Vet noch größer, it becomes even greater when the child that's learning Pshutish or Mikra here will come to Parshas Pinchas and read what it says there. In Parshas Pinchas, auf dem was Moshe hat gebeten beim Eibishten Yifkod Hashem ish ale Eida asher yetzel of Neim Geimer, that Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem when he knows that he's not going to bring Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, that Hashem should appoint a leader for Yidden to bring them, to go out and to bring them into Eretz Yisrael, is Rashi Mefarish. So Rashi there says as follows: Loi kedarke malchei al-Meiri. Moshe Rabbeinu here, or Loi kederach, that is, Moshe Rabbeinu here is asking this, unlike the way it is with the kings of Amayri, or Malchei Ha'umayster, sorry, the kings of the nations. Sheyeshvim bebateim, they sit in their palaces. Umeshalchen es chayaleseim la-Muhammad, they send out their armies into war. Elekamoisha asisi ani, I want you to appoint a leader that should go and do the same as me. Shenilchamti b'sichan v'ay, I myself went and fought Sichan and I personally, didn't send anybody else. Das heißt, as by Moshe is given klar. So we see here that Moshe Rabbeinu himself was clear as an Ish ala Eida daf alein aroiz gen l'mulchama. If you're being appointed as a leader, so then you don't appoint anybody else to go and fight in a battle, but you have to go yourself out. Und noch mehr, Moshe bringt als Beispiel in dem sein eigener Anhage bepeil. Moshe Rabbeinu is bringing his own example that he set of how he behaved. He went out himself and fought Sichen V'Oik, Chotch, dass gewinnt B'Seif Yamav, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was deep in his old age. Is doch Hamua B'Yaiser, so it becomes extremely difficult to understand here. Wie kommt es, verzeindig, der Ishal Eida. Here Moshe Rabbeinu is the leader of Klal Yisrael, mit 40 Jahr inge, and he's 40 years younger, approximately. By Melchemes Amalek here, by this battle with Amalek, is Nisatzel Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu was lazy and he sends Yeshua to go and fight. It's from them Gufel Mochach. What can we prove from all of this? As the Reyu from Nisatzel, by Melchemes Amalek, the fact that it says here that Moshe Rabbeinu was lazy, it was this war against Amalek, is nit kein tztira ditzu. It's not a contradiction to this that Moshe Rabbeinu himself says, "Was an ish ala eida daf alein gein b'milchames," that a leader of people himself has to go out into war. Und zudem was Moshe allein hat sich also geführt bei Milchemes Sichevai. And the way Moshe Rabbeinu himself behaved when it came to the war 40 years later with Sichen and Eik. So this has to be explained. What happened over here in this case? Why Moshe Rabbeinu decides to send Yeshua as a shliach to go and fight Amalek? Let's pay close attention to the exact choice of words in Rashi here. Whereas Mishane von dem Lashon was sagt bepirusha beparsha Shmos hanal, when Rashi changes the word that he uses, the expression that he uses earlier in Parsha Shmos. So Aleph, number one, dort sagt Rashi shenisrashel. Earlier, Rashi uses the word nisrashel, which the literal translation that I saw is remiss or careless. Und da shenisatzel. Over here, he uses the word nisatzel, lax, lazy. Not exactly the same meaning. Beis bepirusha beparsha Shmos state shenisrashel stam. Even though it's talking there about the mitzvah of bris milah, but Rashi just says nisrashel. He was careless. Ubepirusha da shenisatzel b'mitzvah. That Moshe Rabbeinu was lazy in this mitzvah. Why is Rashi adding this emphasis here? So first, what is the exact difference between the term nisrashel and nisatzel? The chiluk zwischen rashlonus and atzlus is, the difference between these two expressions, rashlonus and atzlus, is as follows. Rashlonus meant allgemeine Abgelosenkeit, when a person is in general with an attitude of carelessness. Was es geirim, as man legt up zu tun, epis was. But then that's the reason why a person is procrastinating and he's delaying doing something that has to be done because he's careless about it. Atzlanos is a felkeit. Atzlanos, though, means a laziness benigeya aprotis de gepola. It's not a general attitude of carelessness, but it's a certain level of laziness regarding a specific action, tongue, whether to do something, gain, to go somewhere, aufstehen von Schlaf, or get up from sleep. The Rebbe in the Ha'ara here brings different examples where you see in the pasuk the term atzlus used in this context of a specific action. So therefore, it will be lacking the required zrizus, alacrity, because of a specific level of laziness regarding a specific action. But over here in our case, is by Moshe nit gewenken atzlus tamchas v'shalom. So besides the fact that over here Rashi says there was no general carelessness on behalf of Moshe, it's just an atzlus, a specific level, a specific aspect of laziness. But here Rashi adds another point. Noshenis atzel b'mitzvah. The laziness is in the context of this mitzvah. Legabi der mitzvah wegen welch es redt sich da. It's regarding this mitzvah that we're speaking about here. Heistos, an inyan fun atzlos, we refer to it as a level of laziness, come on, as will be explained in detail here, what exactly this expression of nisatzel bim mitzvah means. So the explanation here is as follows. Here, the Rebbe will show us, if you look at the context of the story of what happens here and what Moshe Rabbeinu's position is as a leader, that we'll see that Moshe Rabbeinu made the choice not to go out with war, not just the lightheadedness and just like decided to shirk the responsibility as a leader. There was a very, very detailed calculation that goes into this. So the Bir Bezet explanation here is as follows. The Sibbe, was Moshe is nit gegangen in the Milchame is, the reason Moshe Rabbeinu did not go out into war here, al pipshute shal mikra, in the simple pshat of the pasuk, nit gewen an ein von ashlonis, it wasn't some kind of carelessness, or that afila atzos chas v'shalom, or even any level of laziness either, God forbid. Nor rather, weil gehalten, Moshe Rabbeinu was of the opinion, as is nit masim, ben shmeinim shana zu sein, a yotzei tzava. That he, at this age, being 80 years old, he's not the person to go out and fight in the war. Und noch mehr, furthermore, gehen bereich von der Tzava, to be the one, to the general, to lead the army, und anführen bei Muhammad, to lead everyone, is Masum Fadi, was in dem Gil von Yotzei Tzava. It's for those that are within that bracket, age bracket of the ones that go and fight in the war. Was apiteire is das from Ben Esrim bis Ben Shishim. As the Torah says later, that's from the age of 20 to 60. Now, even though we find that Moshe Rabbeinu led Yidden out of Mitzrayim with the 10 Makkos, and then by Kriyas Yamsuf, and he's the one that led Yidden with all these tremendous wonders and miracles. And many of these things, the Makkos and so on, were related to Moshe Rabbeinu behaving and acting with certain might, as it was, to bring about these miracles, as the Rebbe brought previously in Order 6, regarding the Makkah and Mitzrayim, Shchin, when he had to throw. So, and Nachmer, even more. In the Melcham, in Mitzichen v'oig, is Moshe Rabbeinu allein gegangen, bereish von der Anshe Tzava, as we pointed out before. There, Moshe Rabbeinu went at the head and led the entire army to fight them. Arais weisendig, wie angedeutet in Pirish Rashi, eise gewöhnliche Gevura, Moshe Rabbeinu demonstrated unusual might. Und das seien die Gscheinen agil korab zu mei vesem shana, and at the age of being about 120 years old. So if so, what does this mean that Moshe Rabbeinu thought that he's not fit to be a soldier in an army? We see here Moshe Rabbeinu fought and went at the head of Yidden when he was at a much older age. But the difference is a bedog given in ganz nah an der Matzev. Here it's a completely different situation. Die Anhage von dem Eibishten mit Yidden bis zu der Melchama mit Amalek is given it apiteva, not by Nisi. Up until this point, the way the Eibishter is acting with Yidden was all out of nature, supernatural. Ondaimedig von the Eises Samoivsim b'Mitzrayim, of course, beginning with all the wonders and miracles in Mitzrayim, then Yitzias Mitzrayim, when Yidden leave Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, Shalachres, and then the splitting of the sea. Und danach the Yeridas Haman v'Aslav, and then the Yidden get the man and the Slav, the birds that came, that the Yidden ate from. Was then gekommen by Nisi men Hashemayim, it all is miracles coming down from heaven. Und haben gespeist all Yidden and fed all the Yidden. However, here something changed. When Yidden arrived into this place of Refidim, wo Yidden haben gesagt, Hayesh Hashem bekirbenim moin, and Yidden questioned, is Hashem amongst us or not? Is the Meibishens Hanhage mit Yidden nit gewen in einem Eufen von Nissen Gluyim? Here, Hashem is acting with Yidden not in the same open, miraculous way. Nor wie Rashi sagt mit Chilas Parshas Amalek, as Rashi himself says in the beginning of this parsha here, Asamach Parsha Zul Mikra Zeh Loimar. So the pasuk here is written to tell you, Tamid ani benechem, I'm always amongst you. Umezumel l'chol tzarchechem, and I'm ready to provide you all your needs. And you're questioning whether I'm amongst you or not. You'll see now, I swear, you'll see in your life here that a dog will come and bite you. And that's Amalek that came and attacked Yidden. And with the Lashon in Mashal was Rashi Firtais, Hashem, which was holding Yidden, threw Yidden off. And here Yidden were exposed to the elements of nature, or to the powers of nature, including Amalek that came and attacked. So this haste, what does this mean? The Sib of Melchamas Amalek is given the hest upon him from the Meibishten. The whole reason that Amalek could come and fight Yidden was because the Eibishter concealed himself and allowed nature and Amalek to come and attack Yidden. Und wie bald as Yidden sind damit gewinnen am Matzev nicht wie früher, nor von hest upon him, und heipach an Organismus, since Yidden now are in a situation where Hashem is concealing himself, and there is no miraculous behavior, the Rebbe hat sich gefordert. So therefore, what's demanded here is, as behesem lezeh, darf euch die Melchama geführt werden in a Seder von a Melchama Tivis. So the Melchama to fight Amalek had to also be done with a Melchama with natural means. As by the Yotzei Tzava sollen sein bechar, as it says here in the pasuk, that the ones that they chose to go out to fight, they chose the people that are strong and are able to fight. Or befrat die Eimdim Bereisha Tzava, especially the generals that are leading them into war. Koil aloich sein in dem Gil HaGevura wie Ben Esrim ad Ben Shishim, and including this detail here, to be in the right age, to be in the age of 20 to 60, to be able to fight. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu felt that he doesn't belong to go out and fight. By contrast, when it comes to the Melchama that Yidden fought Sichen and Oig 40 years later, was the Melchama is given l'maylam and ateva. This is a war that was fought with miracles. Wie der Eibishter hat gesagt, mefurish zu Moshe. As Hashem clearly tells Moshe, Al tira oisoi, ki biyotcha nasati oisoi, ves kolame, ves arzoi, vas sisole kasha sisole, sicha melech al-meirigim. The Eibishter says, I gave him into your hands. It's all going to happen from me, from the Eibishter. You don't have to, it's not in nature. In Amulchame, from Nasati, in a war where the Eibishter says, I already granted him to you. So over here, the rules of nature don't apply. So Moshe Rabbeinu, being at the age of 120, goes and leads Yidden into war. That's the simple calculation that Moshe Rabbeinu made why he didn't go into the army and to fight. It's not because of any laziness, but because this is not in his position to do. This is not what's required from him at all at this time period. Okay, here there's another important point about this as well, regarding why Moshe Rabbeinu did not join and go and fight. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu did not participate in going and fighting in the war with Amalek is nicht bloß gewesen an ihnen von Heder und Schlile. It's not only because of what Moshe Rabbeinu was lacking, that he wasn't up to going and fighting. Since this is a war that's being conducted with the laws of nature, so therefore Yeshua has to lead this war. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu has to just stay out of it. Moshe Rabbeinu, in the positive sense, took up a certain position where he belongs to be, to participate here in this war effort in his own way. In Amulchame was 40 b'derech hateva fordern sich zwei inyanim. When you're fighting a war, so even naturally, what's required is two different points for the success of the war. Aleph, the first thing is the shtadlus or politivis in mfirin de milchama. Whatever effort and whatever activity has to be done naturally in the battle itself, and that's done by those that are appropriate for this, the ones that are strong, that have the might. But then there's another thing. The help that the Eibishter gives that the Yidden should win the war. Varim says move on, because it's understood even just learning the pasuk and its simple basic level of pshat. As a feeling that on Hagavias is al piteva, even when we're talking about fighting a war and just with nature, you must have the help and assistance from Hashem to be victorious in these battles. So that's definitely a very critical part of the Mulchama. Now, Pizeh is move on. This explains what Rashi says when they came to choose who are going to be the men that will go out to fight. So Rashi says, who's fit? They should be both very strong and also God-fearing, that their merits should help them here. So Rashi brings both details. In Mechilte, these are two opinions. So one opinion says that, each opinion says that only one of these attributes are necessary. But Rashi brings both. In this war, even in simple pshat, it's understood that both are required. Gibayrim for the Mulchama Begashmias, to have strong men for the physical fighting. Und Yerechet, sie sollen haben the Siyua from the Meibischen, and then to be God-fearing, to have the help and assistance from Hashem to be victorious. Und die zwei Inyanim sind gewähren in der Mulchama b'Amalek. So we see here how these two different aspects were here in the Mulchama b'Amalek. Aleph, Gvura Gashmis, und Koyach Tivi, you needed physical might, and all whatever forces that you have in nature, was das ist verbunden mit Gebäude Chayil von a jüngeren Gil. And these are the soldiers at the right age, a younger age, ungefähr durch Yeshua, which are led by Yeshua and nicht durch Moshe, and not through Moshe. That's one part of the battle here. But then, another very important part of the battle is Beis Hatfila, the davening of them Eze v'Siyua Mulmaila, to bring the assistance of Hashem from above. As Yidden soll menatzech sein, the Mulchama Tivis, Yidden should be victorious in this battle that's being led with natural means. And in them is moving a pashit, as Moshe is am mersten massen v'roilezeh. That Moshe Rabbeinu is the most fitting individual to daven for the sake of Yidden that are fighting in the war. So Moshe Rabbeinu participated in this battle with the davening in his way, where he was the most appropriate position for him. Und das hat Moshe gesagt zu Yeshua. So this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Yeshua. B'char lanu anoshim v'tzei hilachem b'Amalek. Choose for us men and you go out and fight with Amalek, Machar, tomorrow, Anochi Nitzav, Al Reisha Giva, I will stand here at the top of the mountain, Umato Lekim Biyadi, with the staff of Hashem in my hands. So what do you see here in this pasuk? Bavarent und madgish gewen by beide praten was darf man sein in der Milchama. So here we see in this pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu is telling him and putting forward the two details that are necessary, that are required in fighting a war. So fear in the Milchama bepeil, there's the actual war that has to be fought. But if them hat bestimmt Yeshua, and for this Yeshua was appointed, told say hilachem ba'Amalek, go out and fight with Amalek. Und die Tfila ala Kadosh Baruch Hu was das hat Moshe genommen auf sich, and then Moshe Rabbeinu takes upon himself to daven to Hashem for the success of this battle. Anechi nitzav al reish hagiva umata lekim goyim. That I will be there at the top of the mountain with the staff of Hashem, and I will daven to Hashem. So the pasuk starts b'char lonu. It's Moshe and Yeshua that are going to collaborate in fighting this war. Yeshua with his position, say hilachem, and Moshe Rabbeinu with his position, anechi nitzav al reish hagiva, to daven. Was al reish hagiva is a given shori b'tainis. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went up to daven at the top of the mountain, so he was fasting. Virashi's mefarish oif u'Moshe Aaron v'chur. So Rashi there says mekan l'tainis shetzrichim shloisha lavel of ne'ateva, that they went all three together, because from here we learn that for a tainis you have to have three to daven for the yomut shebetainis hayishtrim. They were all fasting. Vayihi yodav amuna, and his hands were there held up faithful to Hashem. Prusais hashamayim betfilah, spread out to Hashem, davening to Hashem. Umitzadem kommt noch zu in the Svara von Moshe is nicht gehen in der Milchama. So now we understand even more why Moshe Rabbeinu came to the conclusion that he doesn't belong going out to battle fighting. Aleph, because Shari b'tainas and abgeschwach. Moshe Rabbeinu is fasting. He has to fast. His position is to daven to Hashem with all of his might, which includes fasting. So he's weakened. Is it masim to game b'Milchama? So it's not fitting for him to go out and fight. Going up at the head, at the top of the mountain, mit mata alekim ba'aramis yadav, with the staff of Hashem and with his hands raised up, haben ihm niden gekannt sein. So this, besides the fact that he's davening, so now he's in a place where all Yidden can see him from there when they go out to battle. Und durch dem gehat teisves koyach v'oiz in the Milchama, and this will give them the courage and the strength to go out and fight in war. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't just bow out from his responsibility. On the contrary, Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that was davening for Yidden and fasting, and put himself in a place where he's going to give the Yidden the greatest courage to be able to fight in battle. So this is all the calculations that Moshe Rabbeinu made here. So what is it that it says over here that Moshe Rabbeinu, there was an atzlus in the mitzvah, and therefore his hands became heavy? So what does this mean? Moshe is nicht gegangen bei Milchama defar, was also darf sein, die Enhage in der Milchama. So even though Moshe Rabbeinu's calculations were right, this is the way it's supposed to be. Over here in this battle, which is Alpiteva. From deswegen, nevertheless, is Nisyakru Yodov, his hands became heavy. Und Rashi sagt der Tam, b'shulshan is atzel b'mitzvah mina achatachtav. He was lazy in this mitzvah and he appointed someone else. So what does this mean? Where was Moshe Rabbeinu's calculation incorrect? Since we're talking about a mitzvah from Hashem to fight Amalek, had Moshe nicht gedacht machen cheshbenes. Moshe Rabbeinu should not make any calculations. Nor a reisgehen, Milchama halten mit Amalekim, and just go out and fight. To go out and fight and not to think how, what, who. Medaf tfilaton. Well, you're going to ask, well, someone is going to have to daven to Hashem because you can't be victorious in any battle, begashmias, without having tefillah, the assistance of above that comes through davening. And Moshe is Davis's masamlaza, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the most befitting person to come and daven for Yidden. Hat gekent mitnehmen in der Milchama, der Mata Lekim. He can go out into battle with the staff of Hashem. Und dort, auf dem Steher Marache, there on the battlefield, sein at Tfilah Ketzara, Bespala sein, that is, at Tfilah Ketzara, and daven over there, a short prayer to the Eibishter that Yidden should be saved. But he should have immediately rushed into battle, and yes to daven, he'll daven over there in the battlefield. Wie much in gelernt früher by Kriyas Yamsuf. And as we saw already, this Inyan, that the Eibishter tells us to Moshe Rabbeinu by Kriyas Yamsuf, as B'shas Yidden seine gewähnen sehr engen Matzef. Sehr engen Matzef. And Yidden were in a very, very narrow place. They were stuck. The Mitzrayim seine gewähnen lachireim. The Mitzrayim came and were chasing them from behind them. Und der Yam lifneim. On the other hand, they had the Yamsuf right in front of them. Und Moshe hat sich gestellt, mispal sein, und Moshe Rabbeinu stood and davened to Hashem. Hat der Rebbe bei ihm gemahnt, der Hashem demands on Moshe Rabbeinu, ma titzak elai. Why are you now standing and screaming and davening to me? Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'yisol. Speak to the Yidden and tell them to travel forward. Rashi is mefarish, and Rashi there explains what this means. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, loy eis ato laharich b'tfilah. It's not the right time now to daven with Vayitzak, or to daven at length, to immerse yourself in davening. She Yisrael Nesuna Batzara, when Yidden are in a time of danger. So here too, Moshe Rabbeinu could daven for Yidden, but a tefillah kitzara in the battlefield. Und der Rebbe, so therefore, Moshe hat gehabt die Taimim, was alleine ist nicht gegangen bei Milchama. So Moshe Rabbeinu had good reasons why he didn't go into battle. Und die Cheshbeinis sind gewähnt, nicht zu lieb sich. And all these Cheshbeinis that he made were not in any way for his own sake. Nor vis his masim l'toives al Milchama v'nitzchayna. Rather, he was doing this all for the benefit of the battle, of the war, and its victory. As Erzal sein Shori B'tainis, that he should be able to fast, Mispal sein Bereisha Giva, and daven at the top of the mountain, Kanal Barucha, as we explained before at length. Und dazu noch hat bewarnt und minach tachta. And Moshe Rabbeinu made sure to appoint someone else in his place, Shluchai Shel Adam Kamaisai, someone that's taking his place and he's representing him mamish. Was in an anderer Fall, wird es gewähne an Hoge Masime von Moshe Rabbeinu. In any other case, this would have been the right, appropriate behavior from Moshe Rabbeinu. But yet over here, we're talking here about a command from Hashem to fight Amalek. That Moshe's an Hage gerechnet als an Inyan von Esatzel. So Moshe Rabbeinu's behavior here is considered on some level to be a laziness. Legabe dem Eifen han Hage was fordert sich b'mitzvah. In relation to the level of sacrifice and jumping straight into fighting that's necessary here in this mitzvah. The greatkeit und Zrizes zu tun mitzvah. The readiness and the alacrity that's necessary in fulfilling a mitzvah. So it doesn't mean it's atzel in the simple literal sense, but it means that even though there are right cheshbainis, but nevertheless, in a mitzvah, he should have rushed into it to go and fight even after all these cheshbainis. High time is an einish gewen mida keneged mida. And therefore the punishment here is measure for measure in a siakru yodov, that his hands became heavy, as es im gewen schwer, euch das was hat jegetan, als statt was b'mochame. What he was doing here, his participation with Yidden in the battle, to daven also came heavy for him, hard for him. Das was yodov prusis hashemayim betfilah, the fact that he wanted to separate and focus on his davening, so that also became hard for him, because that's not the place where he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be in the battlefield and just daven at tefillah k'tzara there. Here, though, the Rebbe will explain and add another important detail to understand why Moshe Rabbeinu was justified with his cheshbainis and he didn't rush into battle. We can add over here another point. By Moshe is eichnet given shayach has v'sholim an inyan for cheshbainis b'shas hat at tzivi Hashem. Truth is, by Moshe Rabbeinu, he would never make any calculations if we were talking about a clear and direct command of Hashem. Aber benidden die dann, however, in our case though, gefindt men it in Pasik, as der ansagt, say he lochem ba'amalek is given at zivim beforish. We don't find anywhere in the Pasik that when Moshe Rabbeinu tells Yeshua, go and fight Amalek, that this was a clear command of Hashem, von Eibishten. So therefore we can say, as wenn es wollt gewen azat zivui, if there was a clear command of Hashem to go fight, what Moshe allein gleich mekayim gewen dem zivui. Definitely Moshe Rabbeinu himself would go and fight, and he wouldn't divide the positions of fighting and davening. He would go himself and fight. But there was no clear command. Vibalt as a tzibui from the Meibischen of them is nit given. There was no clear command of Hashem for this. Now Moshe Rabbeinu, Roye Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu being the shepherd of Yidden, hat das getan via dava muva mi'elov, did this all as something which is just self-understood. Which is that b'shas goyim foul none of Yidden. When goyim are coming to attack Yidden, darf man aroizgen l'mochame lahagen al Yisrael. You have the obligation to go out and fight and to defend Yidden. That's where Moshe Rabbeinu came to this. That's why he went out to fight Amalek. V'yeshloima as eich lefi hamaskana as Amalek had gekent mochava haben nor mit den achshalom acharecha. And even according to the conclusion that it says that Amalek was only able to fight with those that were lagging behind, and they were outside of the Yidden the Yidden that remained outside of the clouds of glory that surrounded Yidden at that time period. So Moshe Rabbeinu still said that those Yidden have to be defended as well. Hat Moshe Rabbeinu gehalten, Moshe Rabbeinu was of the opinion, as men darf bald aroisgehen, verteidigen die Yidden. You must immediately go out and defend these Yidden. Welche Yidden sie sollen nur sein, regardless of what level and who they may be. Und wie es ist gewesen an Hages Moshe, noch seindig in Mitzrayim. As we saw Moshe Rabbeinu's behavior when he was still in Mitzrayim, as gleich nach dem, wie vayigdam Moshe vayetze alecha, as soon as he got older, and he came out to his brothers, the Yidden, is vi not vayar ish Mitzri maki ish ivri me'echa, he sees a Mitzri that's hitting a Jew, hat sich Moshe Rabbeinu nicht gerechnet mit der Tage von der Ish Ivri. He didn't take a look and see who is this Yid that he attacked there. Na vayachas a Mitzri. He immediately killed a Mitzri for what he did. Und der Rebbe, wie bald Moshe hat es getan, wie adova muva meyatzmai. Since here Moshe Rabbeinu is going out, or sending Yeshua to go out and fight in battle, as something which is self-understood, nit als kiyum von atzivi mefurish ma Hashem. It's not a clear and direct command of Hashem. Hat angenommen, als da fordert sich nicht, als sei der Hanhage angeschweines, als wie bei atzivi mefurish. So in this case, it's not necessary to run into this and rush into this, as it would be with a mitzvah, because here he didn't have that clear mitzvah. Bei dem Eibischen aber hat sich das gerechnet als an Inyan von es Atzel b'mitzvah. But nevertheless, Hashem considers this to be a level of laziness in a mitzvah. Warum, wenn Goyim kommen Milchama haben mit Yidden, because when Goyim come and fight Yidden, is das a fille far Matan Torah, a mitzvah, even before Matan Torah, this could be considered to be a mitzvah chi gedola, and the greatest mitzvah at that. So a reis game b'Milchama lahagen al Yisrael, to go out to fight and to defend and to save Yidden. Und es darf getan werden, onken in Betrachtungen und Ausrechnungen. And this should be done without thinking into this, calculating whether I should go, should not go. Hagam, benidden die dan, is nit gewendet auf Atzivi von Eibischen, even though there was no clear command from Hashem for this. So we understand now that the Nisatzel, the mitzvah in Rashi is not to be taken literally. It's on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, and with all the cheshbainis, as the Rebbe explained, of why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go out into battle. Here the Rebbe will explain the amazing and powerful lesson that we have to take from this Rashi and what's relevant and applicable for us today. From the Pirish Rashi is the Hira, Nifla, and Avedas Adam. From this Rashi we have a very powerful lesson in our Avedah, serving Hashem. It says, move on, it's understood, as das, was jed der Inyan und Prat in Teire is Hira and Nitzchis. Every detail in Teire is an everlasting lesson. B'chol azmanim, u'b'chol ha'mekaymis, in all times, in all places. Is das ba'oifin miyuchad, it's especially so, b'yesas eisa, b'yesar oz, many times more with the taikif, in the minyan fun Muhammad Amalek, when it comes to the fight of Amalek. And this is expressed in a few different points, and from them is the following points here. Aleph, regarding Amalek, it's a clear command that it should be written. What Amalek did should be written b'sefer. This says, as the ilu yomailofan as the korim b'chsav. When you write something, what's the advantage of this? Mitzadem was tchol shebkosev b'teire hadover havenitzchi. Like this is an expression that Rogatchover says that anything that's written in Torah, so that's eternal. Is das by Mechanas Amalek b'yasa toikev v'ilu, and by Amalek this is even more so. V'bal tzis doav dem atzivi miyuchad, because it's not just part of anything in Torah that's written in the Torah. But here the Torah is specifically saying that this should be written down, that it should be eternal. Beis, in Divrei Hashem Gufe wird angesagt mit Adgasha of the Minyan Shal Tmidi und Nitzchi. The way the Eibishter gives the mitzvah to fight Amalek, it's very emphasized that this is something which is constant and forever. Mulchama Hashem ba'Amalek mitorder. Hashem fights Amalek in every generation. Beis, as the Rinyan Nitzchi is, Shal Mulchama zu sagt sich areis and atzivu kipshutai. The fact that this is something eternal is expressed in the command that there is literally over here in fighting Amalek. This is a mitzvah, sasem and atayra, lizker, tomid, maisav aroim. As the language that Rambam says in Hilchas Malachim, to constantly fight Amalek with his bad deeds. This is a mitzvah, lizker, maisav Amalek b'chol yoim, the Kama days. According to some opinions, it's a mitzvah to remember what Amalek did to Klal Yisrael every single day. From them is move on, so therefore we understand from this, as nid blois der teichen from Mulchamas Amalek, is an inyan nitzchi b'avodah ruchnis. So not only the content of fighting Amalek and fighting the raw, the bad, the spiritual evil of Amalek and a ruchnizige level is all an eternal war. The way how you go out to battle, how do you conduct this battle? This is also an eternal lesson here. Und noch mehr is es Negeya in dem Zman von Ikvis de Mashiach. This is even more relevant now in the times, right before Mashiach comes. Wie steht in Targum Yonison, Bepirish, Melchama Lashem Ba'Amalek Midor Dor. The Targum Yonison says, what does it mean when it says that Hashem fights Amalek from one generation to the next? As eine von die drei Kloles de Gedeires von Mechias Amalek, one of the three general time periods of generations when the Eibishter fights Amalek is Dora, the Ikvis of the Mashiach, the time when we're right before Mashiach comes. So therefore, the lesson of how to fight Amalek is particularly relevant for us now today. So what's the lesson we take out of what happened here? Das verstehen durch Bavarenen noch a Shaila Klolis in the Minyan. So we can understand this by first clarifying a general question that can be asked on the subject here. Why at all is Torah telling us this detail that Moshe Rabbeinu's hands became heavy and because there was a level of laziness on behalf of Moshe? It's a rule. The Torah does not speak negatively even about the impure animal. It says instead of using the word tmeya. Definitely when it comes to human beings, especially Yidden. Definitely Moshe Rabbeinu, the chosen of all human beings. Why is the Torah going out of its way to share a certain detail that's negative about it? So from them Gufas move on. From this we understand as euch das is Ahira Nitzchis and the Melchama Ruchnis mit Amalek shebachol dor v'dor. So there has to be over here an eternal lesson in Amalek for all generations. The Be'er Bezeh, the explanation here is as follows: Amalek hat b'mulchamtei gekent pegeye sein nor die Yidden bei wem es is given a chalishus and amunas Hashem. When Amalek came to fight Yidden, who did Amalek attack and who did Amalek affect? Only those Yidden that were weak in their belief in Hashem. Und Kanal, as mentioned before, wie steht in Pasuk in Parsha Seitze, v'yezanev b'chol nor kol anachashalom acharecha. Those that were lagging behind. Was das meant, wie Rashi Taich, chseidim koyach, those that didn't have energy, machmas chetam, and it's because of their sins, shoya ha'onan peltam. And therefore the clouds of glory spit them out. Nor di was any given b'chutz la'onan. So those are the ones that Amalek is able to attack, those that are outside of the clouds. Aber die Yidden, was haben sich gefunden, innewenig, the Yidden that are on the inside, they hat Amalek nicht gekannt anrühren. Over there, Amalek cannot touch Yidden. Und der Teichen und Inyan von Beruchnius is B'chol Adeiros. So the content of this idea of how Amalek comes to fight and who he attacks is relevant in every generation. Rubam kekulam from Bnei Yisrael gefindet sich b'toich ha'anan. The overwhelming majority of Klal Yisrael is found, to one degree or another, inside the clouds. In Gvul und innewenig von Torah and Mitzvahs, within the boundaries and inside where there's the fulfillment of Torah and Mitzvahs. Ubechlal, and in a more general sense, verbunden mit dem Eibishter, connected to Hashem. Yadere lefi ma'amadi matzave, everybody in their condition, on their level. Und der Anon, Torah and Mitzvahs, so this cloud, which is Torah and Mitzvahs, is making of Yidden of alle ruche zaris, protects Yidden from all winds that can come and blow to attack Yidden. Was blasen von Chutz und Chum HaKdusha that blows outside of the boundaries of holiness. Und befrat von Amalek was bringt Kriris asher karcha in Yanei Yadus. Especially the wind of Amalek, which Amalek represents, karcha, he brings in a kaltkeit, a coldness in dedication to Yiddishkeit. That's for the overwhelming majority of Klal Yisrael. As an da Yidden, however, there are those Yidden, was mesibis shaynes, for whatever reasons, not understood by us, zen is a nit betechan. They're not inside the cloud. They say that Achaim is le'eisata noch nit in ganzen bas ome zu der Heroes HaTorah. Their lifestyle is not exactly in sync with the guidance of Torah. Und defar ken Amalek begematria Safek, and therefore Amalek, which has the same gematria as Safek that creates doubts in the connection to Hashem, haben matzutri zu say, can have can go and come close to attack such a Yid. Und reinwerfen in sei Sveikis v'chulu, and therefore throw all kinds of doubts in their minds. In Amunah b'Yecheles Hashem, the belief that a Yid has in Hashem's power, and create a kaltkeit, a coldness for matters of holiness. Can der Rebbe gemalt sein? So now it's possible, as a Yid was gefindt sich betoichanon, a Jew that's found inside the cloud, soll trachten bei sich, will think to himself as follows. Was für a Scheiches hab ich mit die was gefindt sich mechutz von der Mannen? What relation do I have to those Yidden that are so far away, that are outside the cloud? Rechent, as jene Yidden haben it kein Scheiches. So he thinks to himself that, look, you could see how far I am and I have no relation and therefore no responsibility, no connection to those Yidden that are outside the cloud. Yes, it's true, those that are inside the cloud, they learn it, they learn, they fulfill mitzvahs. Not as Feltzein, they may be lacking one area of another, the fullest perfection in this. Or that afilan ish pashet. Or even if it's a simple person versus in the diagram of he's a wood chopper, a water carrier, is enachanami as for him. Zaindig from the sheichem shiftechem. So yes, this person says to himself, yeah, I'm on a much higher level than him. I'm from the leaders amongst Klal Yisrael. Is das lefidaita ya yiride? Zu haben zu tun mit Azayiden and him helfen in sein matzev. It's a big descent for him to lower himself down, to come and deal with a person that's on such a low level. Aber afa pikein tute das. He'll be ready to go ahead and do this. Wie bald, as sof redt sich das wegen einem was gefindt sich mit ihm in einem beteichanan. It's someone else which is in the same crowd and the same community or in the same lifestyle as me within Torah mitzvahs inside the clouds. Aber, however, he continues and argues, was for a shayches hat teinet der, so der was gefindt sich michutz lahanan, Rachmana litzlan. What relation do I have to someone found completely out of the clouds of Torah and mitzvahs, God forbid? Mit dem willen it haben zu tun. With this individual, I'm not interested in doing anything for his sake. And here the emphasis is on the word sitan, as the Rebbe now explains. I can do something for his behalf. I can do something for his merit. I'll learn for his sake. I'll daven for him that Hashem should help him. That I myself should take action and go out. From the to leave the walls of the Beis Medrash, or even the walls of a Beis HaKnesses, a place of davening. And to go out and to search and to find another Yid, which is in a place, in an environment which is completely outside of this place, of this holy cloud. Hamakim was Makim from Yerushalayim, a place where there's no God-fearing Jews there. He argues that there's no place for such a kind of behavior. I don't belong going and finding Yidden that are so far out. And how much more so you can continue and argue and say, if this is an individual that's on a level that Torah is his entire profession, to whatever degree that's possible today, because to really fully be on the level of Torah Siyam Nasai is only in the times of the Tanaim. Is ein Svare und Tam Hashlile noch größer und starker? So if so, the logic, this thinking that negates and says that I have no reason to go out and leave where I am, to go find these Yidden that are on the outside, is many times fold stronger. How is it possible to say that he has to give up of learning Torah on such a level? To go out to those that sin and are outside the cloud. Of the Amaleks, in order to make sein of Zeif from the Amaleks, that is, to go and save them from whatever kind of attack of various levels of Amalek. Starken sie in ihrer Munne, strengthen them in their belief. Beweiteren sie von Achet, help them be far from an Aveda, bewirken sie zu Mekayim sein noch a mitzvah, and to help them, to influence them to do another mitzvah. Where is my place over here? I don't belong there. I belong in the place of Torah Siyam Nasai. My profession is in learning Torah. That's the argument that a Yid will make. So for this we have the lesson right here from the Eshra Milchama by Yidden Areis Geinik from Mitzrayim, from the very first battle that Yidden fought when they came out of Mitzrayim, Milchemes Amalek, the battle with Amalek, Ahayra in Dem Alam. A lesson for all of these arguments that a person that may hesitate to go out and to fight and to find the Yid and to save him from Amalek may say. Shas Amalek kommt und verchappet sich mit der Yidden, was gefindt sich mechutz la'anan. When Amalek comes and he wants to bother a Yid, he wants to hurt a Yid that's outside of the tent, or outside of the cloud, that is. Afilo ob ze gefindt sich dort, sein gefindt sich dort, is ba Shmossei von dem Yidden. Even if the fact that the Yidden is found in that place, he has only himself to blame. Kanal machmas chatoim, as Rashi says here regarding the Yidden that were outside the cloud, it was their avedis. Darfen die Yidden, was gefindet sich beteuche anan, a rauskommen von dort, bechdei zum Mege sein of the Yidden in Zera Muhammad gegen Amalek. So those Yidden that are inside the clouds have to go out and protect those Yidden, defend those Yidden, and fight for their sake. Vaderab, on the contrary, wer darf sein beikke die, was darf von Aris gehen, zu beschützen die Yidden von Amalek? Who are the ones that have to be going at the head of the army to fight more than anybody else, to protect another Yid? The Yirechet, was darf geseh, ab dem Koyach zu lechem sein, Mulchemes Amalek. As Rashi says, B'char lanu anashim, who do you choose? Those Yirechet, those that are God-fearing, inside the clouds, they're the ones that have to be chosen to go and fight. Und der Oymed Bereish HaMucham is Yeshua. Who's the one that's the general, standing at the head of everything, is Yeshua. Wenn man hat angesagt, B'char lanu anashim, v'tzeim en ha'anan, ilachem ba'amalek, he was told to choose the men and to go out and fight. Was Yeshua has given lo yomish miteicha oil. Who is Yeshua? He never budged from the tent of Moshe Rabbeinu. Teirasayim nasay. His entire life, his entire profession was all just Teirah. On hat gedarft anführen de Milchama. He is the one that has to go and lead the battle here. Und the Teirah is Meisef Nachme. And here the Teirah adds an additional detail. As afil Moshe was at betzim b'pnimius angeführt die ganze Milchama, Moshe Rabbeinu, which in essence, and really, if you look deeper at the story here, he's really the one that's leading this entire battle. Hat memane given Yeshua, he's the one that's appointing Yeshua. He's not just bowing out, but he's very involved. He's appointing Yeshua as shluchai, as his agent, Sefir de Muhammad, to go and conduct the battle. Und hat allein geführt Muhammad beruchni is bitfilasai. And he's also taking the spiritual part of the battle. Vihi yadav amunat boy Hashem, standing with his hands spread out to heaven until the sun comes down. Is den ganzen Tag gewesen shori betainis, the entire day he fasted for the sake. Und is gestanden beyadav prusis hashemayim betfilas, spread out with his hands in davening. Und hat durch them gepeilt, dem V'gavav Yisrael. And he brought that Yidden should be strong and be able to be victorious over Amalek. Hat aber trotzdem allem neisef al kol zeh. But after everything that Moshe Rabbeinu did in his participation in fighting with Yidden, allein gedarft reisgein und sich mishtatev sein in der Milchama mamish pshutoy kemashmo. Nevertheless, as we see here, the Eibush demanded that Moshe Rabbeinu should have been the one that should literally have gone out into the battle there for the Yidden that are on the outside of the clouds. Is the Hira oich zu agodel. And therefore from here is the lesson even to the greatest individual amongst the Yidden. Es ist nicht genug histatfus ruchnis in the Milchama ba'amalek b'chol dar. It's not enough just the spiritual participation in the fight against Amalek, the spiritual fight against Amalek in every generation. Kennt sich mit stoppig sein mit dem, was wird sagen, a Kapitel Tillim, as the Yidden sollen sich umkehren zu Yiddishkeit. It's not enough that you say to yourself there are those Yidden that are being attacked by the coldness of Amalek and are being taken away from Torah mitzvahs, there are munas being threatened and so on, and I'm just going to sit here and say a Kapitel Tillim for their sake. The David should awaken their neshama to return to Hashem. Afal pi, was das ist a hechrich, und gavoya al gavoya, v'chulu, even though this is a must, and this is a very great and powerful thing. Und es ist euch nicht maspik, soll schicken seine Schluchim with them. And it's not even enough to send out agents, others that should go and do it in your place. Na darf allein reisgehen und ton, was ist nötig zu mege sein auf jeden. The greatest person amongst Klal Yisrael, he himself has to go out and be there to interact with Yidden, to go, to elevate the Yidden, to return them to Hashem. That's the most powerful lesson that we learn over here, and why the Torah is telling us here this detail, the story with Moshe Rabbeinu. And on through this kind of behavior, as negate, not making any calculations, not using any logical reasoning, even if they are very important and holy calculations. In the when it comes to wiping out Amalek. So the Eibush also will behave in the same manner in the Machai Emche Ezecher Amalek, as the pasuk says that Hashem promises that I will wipe out Amalek. Hecha von Cheshbeinis, Umedidis Vagbalas, Hashem will do it also beyond any calculations or limitations. und ist medalig auf dem Ketz und bringt the Gula Asida, the Eibische jumps ahead of the time and brings the upcoming redemption, was damals wird sein, Hashem Shalom, Vakise Shalom, the Eibische's name will be complete, the Eibische's throne will be complete, Bekarev Mamish, Ubagola Ditan.